Albert Einstein once said, "A true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." And here in the North Volume Studios today, I have two of my friends who I think are probably pretty keen at being imaginative people. So if you would do me a favor and give us your name, Mr.
Lincoln, Kyle Lincoln.
Kyle Lincoln and
David Young.
David Young. Now, so here we are here. We've got some miniatures all put out and a bevy of dice, and we got some manuals. We're here to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, or what us cool people like to call D&D. So we're cool with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So for anyone who doesn't necessarily know, Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game, and whoever doesn't know what a role-playing game, it is a game where you sit or stand, or you're out in a field, or you're on the moon, but what you're using is your imagination to put yourself in a scenario. There's often a loose thread of rules and how people can interact, and you are using your imagination to get through scenarios. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense to me.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that. First thing, I'm just gonna kind of address the elephant in the room. There's definitely a stigma about people who play Dungeons and Dragons, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
So what does that look like?
I would say on the norm.
Yeah?
It's this nerdy, in the basement, covered in darkness, living with your mom kind of.
Nothing wrong with living with your mom.
Absolutely not.
But
I think I would say now with pop culture and stuff, it's becoming more acceptable.
mainstream.
Mainstream.
Okay.
Pop culture podcasts.
Yep, there you go.
And TV shows like The Big Bang Theory and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like
Still never seen an episode actually, but I hear it's good. So I sent you guys a couple of questions to think about. I'm gonna ask the first question, and one is, how old are you now, and how old were you when you started playing?
So I'm 39, and my first introduction to it was probably around 13, 14 years old.
Okay. All right. And you and I were talking before the show a little bit about that. You and I have known each other since about that time.
That's correct.
And we used to be the outsider cool kids in a bunch of church teen groups, would you say?
Yeah, youth groups, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun, but we had to carry around this deep, dark secret that we played Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I don't know if any of you are aware, but in the early 90s, there was a huge stigma. In the 80s, there was that movie starring Tom Hanks where he was caught role-playing and he murdered somebody. So that stigma kind of carried, and if you were at a Christian youth group, D&D didn't necessarily work out necessarily.
No.
So it's not something that you talked about, but...
We played at night with the lights off, with flashlights, quietly under the covers.
And that's
dice.
passion.
Oh, yeah.
That's passion right there. How about you, David? How old are you, and how old were you?
So I'm 37. I didn't actually play D&D until I was in the military, so I was 19 when I first tried Dungeons and Dragons. I had tried another role-playing game in middle school, like once or twice. It was called Legend of the Five Rings.
Okay, sure.
But that's where it
Was
stopped.
that Lord of the Rings based, or?
No, it was based in as an Asian setting.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Oriental mythology. Right. Okay. So now, even 19 though, and you're 37, you still got into it while you were developing into the person that you are.
Right.
And would you say why would you say you still play it? Why is it still appealing to you?
So many reasons. I think it's most appealing to me because it's a sandbox. You can do whatever you want. It gives you a chance to get out of the world and into something different. And you are with a group of people that you're all working together to create a story. Right. So you get that social interaction and that camaraderie because you're all working together. But you're also telling a story that's coming out of your imagination.
Okay.
Reading a book is great, we all love reading the book, but when you're reading it, every now and then you think, I wish this character would do something different.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
Why are you going into that room? Don't do that. And you get to actually control that character now.
It's like expanding upon the choose your own adventure
Exactly.
style.
That's exactly
Okay.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Okay. So, but what about you, Kyle? You got into it secretly when you were a teenager. Why are you still fascinated by it?
Well, I actually stopped playing
Okay.
as we grew up, and I did play some other tabletop games with some friends, BattleTech.
Ugh.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a
Long,
time. There's a
drawn
time
out.
and money sink right there.
It definitely was. But life happens and stuff, and I didn't really start getting back into it about 5 years ago.
Okay.
As a way to really tap into that creativeness and hanging out with friends,
Yeah.
so that you could get away from the real world for a little while and just relax.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to treat you guys like you're the odd ones out. I played a lot of D&D when I was younger, and my favorite thing to do when I was playing D&D was not actually playing D&D, but preparing for the campaign. And I had a friend who had a stone basement. And so we would put like those dollar store cobwebs that you get on Halloween. We used to put those out, stock up on Mountain Dew and Doritos, and like we set it up
Surge.
so like, oh gosh, it was actually Surge. That's what it was. It wasn't Mountain Dew because Surge all the way, and that was so much fun. Of course, playing with friends, that was a lot of fun too. But I remember my favorite part was preparing for the campaigns and times, and
The excitement of getting together with your friends and having a good time.
and there's this acceptable concept that like you're playing something that is not super socially acceptable. Yeah. However, when you're in a group of friends that all play, they're just kind of like, oh, cool, you're one of us.
You let your freak flag fly.
Yeah,
right.
I like that. Let your freak flag fly. Okay, good. All right, so then let me ask you this. Now, why would you play D&D over any other activity?
I just feel like, for myself, it's something that I can look forward to in the long term. It's something that takes a while to accomplish, takes a while to plan. Coordinating people's schedules is always tough.
Oh, sure.
Versus, board games are fun, but they're immediate and they're done.
Right. Yeah. One sitting.
Yeah. With D&D, you may get through absolutely nothing in 5 hours.
Yeah.
but
Yep.
have a great time doing it.
But have a great time doing it.
Yeah. I think now I don't any longer play D&D as much, and that's more of where I am in my life right now. I'll probably find my way back at some point. But what I will say is the last couple times that I played, I think my party we went to a tavern. And we spent 4 hours trying to figure out how to get in the tavern and past the security guard working at the tavern. And we did nothing. And it was a blast. It was absolutely great. How do you get into that headset, though? Because both of you are respectable adults who have adult life and children and
Thank
such.
you.
So I'm trying. But how do you get to that point where you are, like going like, okay, well, I've got all this adulting to do, and then for the next 3 hours, I'm going to pretend.
I mean, for me, it's like, how is it any different than, the guys who get together to play poker on a Saturday night, or the person who has the man cave, right? The man cave
Sure.
that sits in there and play a video game for 3 hours on end. There's really no difference. I think the difference is that this gets to be social. This gets to be really face-to-face social, and you can work through like some really intense stuff and actually have fun doing it. Whereas usually when, at least my experience in playing poker, we're
Sure.
not having intense conversations. We're not having
No. That's actually a big key to poker is silence.
Straight face.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas when you're playing D&D, like things come up.
Sure.
It's built into the into the game that you'll have social interactions that are difficult.
Right.
And those become fun when you work together to live
To
through
solve
it.
them.
Yeah.
Or you have that one wild card that's just like you approach a mysterious man, and then you get that one person who's not really trying really hard to be a team player goes, I stab him in the face. You're like, okay, roll for it.
Yep.
You know, and then you
It's
have
usually
to,
the barbarian.
but then you have to work through the resolve of what's going on, right?
Every decision you make has a consequence, good or bad, in this game, and it's all a roll of the dice.
Yeah, oh man, I wish I could live my life by a 20-sided die, right? That'd be pretty fun.
You make your decisions based on your roll.
Yeah, I can do that. I sure could do that. So, so let me. For folks who are probably listening, if you do want to get into Dungeons and Dragons, but you don't know what it is, or even just role playing or tabletop gaming, I'm not gonna stop and explain what all that is, or have you guys explain necessarily what that is, but if you could kind of tell us a little bit, about like kind of what is D&D necessarily compared to other things. So, you know, we might have some listeners out there who have probably played Monopoly. So that's the foot in the door. So how do you get a Monopoly player to play D&D? What is D&D like?
Well, I'll take a stab at it first, Dave. If other board games and things kind of put you in a shoebox and give you a set of rules and you have to follow them. Mm-hmm. Whereas D&D allows you to try to do whatever it is that you can imagine to do in any way possible to do it, and your success is based on chance of the dice.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, so there's that whole aspect where it's not, you're not shoeboxed into that small little space, but also it's not competitive in the same respect that a typical board
cooperative.
Game is. It's cooperative, yeah. I'm not competing against my party members. I might be competing against time, or I might be competing against, you know, some mythical monster that's there, but I'm not competing against the people around the table.
Okay. If you could just tell me, how is a game run? How does that work?
Basically, there's very bunch of different ways you can run the game depending on the group that you're sitting with. But usually there's a dungeon master or game master, the person who narrates the story. They'll come up with a scenario,
right,
and then the players have a character, and then how it's run is the DM kind of explains what they hear, see, smell, and all of that sort of thing, and then the players say what their characters do, and then
that sounds like an important role, actually. And let me clarify. So it used to be called Dungeon Master because it was Dungeons and Dragons, and also a lot of the earlier campaigns were set in dungeons necessarily. But they've expanded to calling them Game Masters because of other tabletop games that have kind of what it just basically means is there's a person who is not a regular player who kind of facilitates the game while other people experience the game. Does that make sense?
They're the narrator of the story.
The narrator. That's good. I like that. There's actually a really great, if you want to see people playing Dungeons and Dragons in a very fun, awesome, accessible setting, Vin Diesel actually did, and for promotion of this movie that the Witcher, the last
Witch Hunter.
Yep. Sorry, he did these things. So they started calling the episodes that he did D and Diesel, and it's awesome. It's just really great to watch. But anyway, so you explained there's a dungeon master or a game master. Are they making it up as they go along, or?
Well, that again depends on the group. Later on today, I'm going to be running a game where I am winging it. It's on the fly. The only thing I know is what these two characters are, and I'm going to tell a story with them. But other times, you can buy published adventures and run those. You can find free ones on the internet, or you can write your own. That book, The Dungeon Master's Guide, gives you all the rules necessary to create your own world.
Right.
It could be as in-depth as Tolkien, or as simple as, just a tiny little map where they're exploring.
The actual last time I considered joining a campaign, and it didn't work out for me time-wise, was an acquaintance was running a Zelda campaign that took place in Hyrule, and everything was adapted to Zelda, and I was like, that's so cool. And apparently it went really well.
Yeah.
So
At least that's what I hear.
yeah, I didn't get to do it. You didn't get to do it, but it went really well. So let me throw this out there again. I'm just to kind of battle stigma a little bit. I'm hitting you with the hard questions. Do you consider at all that playing D&D it is possibly childish or maybe immature?
I'm sure it can be stigmaed that way, like you said. I don't think it is. I mean, we deal with a lot of adult situations. It allows it to be very creative from a game master's point of view. Where you're writing a story, you're writing a book. I wouldn't consider it any more childish than an author writing a new novel.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. A novel that you're experiencing with a group of people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree. There are times when it can be childish and it can be like ridiculous and just zany.
But we gotta stop. We gotta stop this stigma a little bit because it's okay to be
exactly
It's
out
okay
of,
to,
immature a little
be
bit,
loose
right?
and
Yeah.
exactly.
Let your hair down.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I think all of us
times-
have short or no hair. So,
But at
yeah.
other times it can be very serious, and I wouldn't, as far as it being a childish game. No, I mean the age limit, it says start at 12. My daughter's 11. I'm letting her start to play now.
Oh, I know.
Like, you know,
And she
Yeah.
does a great job.
yeah, my daughter's 10. She's just started playing with us. So
Yeah. And my daughter loves the D&D group that she's in, which your daughter is a part of as well. So I just kind of had to ask this because from the outside, if anyone doesn't play, it's okay to play Monopoly or Scrabble or something else, but Dungeons and Dragons, that's weird.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with important people in your life going, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons? What's wrong with you?
Well, I personally have former coworkers that make jokes about us playing on a
Sure.
bi-weekly basis, and it's just kind of let them ramble.
Yeah.
We have fun doing what we're doing.
Right.
If they took the time to come and join us one night, they might see what it is that we do, and may actually want to get involved.
Did you ever see that Key and Peele episode? Do you ever watch the show? There's a comedy sketch show. I think it's on Comedy Central, and it's called Key and Peele. It's Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. Brilliant writers, brilliant comedy people. And there's this one where this guy brings his cousin to a D&D session, and the guy's like this total gangster, and everyone really likes what he's doing. Look it up. It's really it's just Key and Peele D&D, and it's really funny because this person gets really into it and everyone else loves it. But that's the issue here is I personally, because this is a mental health podcast, I do believe that there are possibly benefits to the social interaction, like you were bringing up, David, earlier. And there are people who will not go beyond this stigma or this idea because they don't want to be ridiculed or they don't want to be questioned on why they're doing this. So what kind of advice would you give somebody who's just like on the fence, but they don't want their, peers to think that they're weird?
I would say if you have an opportunity to talk with or join a group one night, you'll see that there's tons of people out there that are facing that same stigma.
Okay.
And if you can face it as a group and have fun
Yeah.
and not worry about what the outside world says at that moment, then you'll get that support.
That's good.
Get past that section.
I like that. What do you think, David?
Yeah, so finding someone and actually talking to someone who plays is probably the biggest thing. But there's other things you can do too if you want to just check it out first. If you're nervous, there's the Dungeons and Dragons website, dungeonsanddragons.com,
Oh, yeah.
is loaded with tons of information and ways to get in touch with groups if you don't know anybody who plays. There's all sorts of ways like that.
Wizards of the Coast, who also manages Magic the Gathering and a couple other products, they are very serious about people interacting. And so there are store locators,
Yep.
right? And I'm just going to throw this out there. In Plattsburgh, we have a store that is probably one of the most supportive stores as far as when it comes to playing any type of game, and that's AC Gaming Space on Weed Street.
Agreed.
If you go and you're just like, hey, I've got this weird game I want to play, Anthony there or any of the other people who are there will go, okay, well, let's find a group and we'll make a group and we'll make it happen. And almost every single day of the week, there is a Dungeons and Dragons group that meets there, and it is awesome because I'll go there for different reasons, and I just wish I could record some of the conversations I hear, because people bickering about opening a bottle, like stuff like that, and it's just so wonderful because they're really enjoying themselves. But that's a good thing. We not all of us have that outlet, so we're very fortunate. Not a lot of people out there have a local gaming store that is as accessible, but we've got AC Gaming Space. David, you have a couple groups that you do.
Yeah. So like yesterday, the group that I was in, I was a player in another group. Our friend Sebastian runs, and it's great. It's fun.
Yeah, he's so imaginative.
Yeah,
Dude.
It's pretty great. It's a whole world that he created, which is wonderful. And then I'm running it's not Dungeons and Dragons, it's actually Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is very similar.
Right. Kind of based on the earlier versions
Right.
of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. So I'm running that on Saturdays in the afternoon.
Cool. Around the same time that our daughters have their group that they
That's
go.
kind of what made me decide to do it. I didn't want to drive back and forth to Peru.
Totally.
So I just figured I'd stay and run a game.
I hear you. And Kyle, you were telling me earlier that you play mostly at home.
Yeah, we have a group that meets at my home. There's 9 of us, so it's a huge party. And we meet every other week because of busy schedules, and we adjust that.
You say huge party. What is that? What do you mean?
If you agree, a normal party, the people that play, not the dungeon master,
Okay.
anywhere between 4 and 5 on average.
Sounds right.
So we double that.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a lot of people sitting around the table.
Whew.
It's a
8
lot
to
of
10.
conversations. It's a lot of adjustment on our DM to make sure that it's enjoyable and still difficult at times.
It's got to be a lot of rolling for initiative right there.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's a lot of rolls. But so we have that group, which kind of evolved from another group from a different campaign, which added some of the same people, but some new people came.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm in the process of starting a campaign that I'm writing, and our first session will be on the 22nd of February.
Awesome.
Where we are including even more new people, some people that this is their first time ever playing.
That's
So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
So would you say that this game is what do you need to get started? Like what do you need to go out and buy to come to your first game?
I don't think you need to buy anything. You
No.
can find most of it for free. The books that I've bought to help me out are just because I'm going to have them around, and we share them with other groups
Yeah.
so that they don't have to buy. But there are apps
Yeah.
and PDF files and everything that you can.
So what do you
get
need
for
to start?
free. Some dice and your imagination.
Yeah. But you could borrow some of that.
You could borrow some
stuff.
of that.
Not imagination.
Not imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say just you wouldn't even need that. The group that you're in is going to have whatever group that you join will have something.
Yeah.
But
Your game master is
Game
probably
master
going to
has-
provide you with certain things.
also like D&D Beyond is right from Wizards of the Coast, and it gives you a chance to try it out.
Yeah.
There is other apps that are other free apps and things like that are out there as well, but it makes it really accessible.
That's great.
Dungeons and Dragons or Wizards of the Coast put out their PDF, the basic set to to play for free.
So if this stuff is out there for mostly free, how do they make money?
Supplements. You learn there's so much more to what's in those 3 books than what is in a lot of some of the free stuff. But also there's the fan base, right? I mean, people have been playing Dungeons and Dragons since its inception, and they still play. Like I have a player in my group that's been playing since Dungeons and Dragons first edition. He's been
Which was 78 or something?
74, I think.
74.
Oh
the
my
first one,
goodness.
like,
Yeah.
Wow.
but
That's
he's
a dedicated fan.
Yeah.
Right. He's been playing since then, and in the Forgotten Realms, which is the main setting right now. But so he's very dedicated. He's got tons of totes full of the old books, like all the Dragon magazine, Dungeon magazine, all those
cool.
things. So when the new system comes out, people want to buy it and find out the new system. Some people got a little bit burned with edition 4, but we won't go
Right,
there.
but that's why we're
Bring
at
in
5.
Pathfinder.
We're at
Yeah.
5 right now. Yep.
But there's also a lot of homebrew stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like David was talking about, there's people that are so involved in it and love it so much that they create new races, new classes, new monsters, and then they put all that out there and people play test it to balance it to make sure that it works within
That's really cool.
the confines of the mechanics.
Right, and there's been product that has been created from that, like like Pathfinder, White Wolf. White Wolf was really early, and just so many different types of things. So tabletop gaming is definitely alive, and it is out there, and there is a market for it. But this being a mental health podcast, what I really need to know is, how does playing D&D or other tabletop games like this benefit your mental health?
For me, it's a lot of self-care. It
Okay.
allows me to have some time for myself to put work and problems and bills and whatever else might be happening in my life aside for that time and really interact in a positive fashion with friends, now family, and really kind of give me something to look forward to at the end of the week too, or the following week, depending on. And it just helps to balance that stress in my life.
Sure. Would you say like this is a lot of people would, like, instead of going to play D&D, they would get off of work and go to the bar
Right.
or something. This
Yeah.
is your version of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about you, David? Why does playing D&D benefit you mental health wise?
There's a lot of reasons, but mainly the end of the week, or whenever I get to play, I get to set aside all the things. So I'm currently dealing with a lot of stuff. My life changed recently. The VA has taken me out of work and told me that I'm disabled with all the things that happened while I was in the military. So
Heavy stuff.
yeah. So I have a lot of extra time on my hands right now. So as far as mental health, it allows me to write new stories, get some creative
Something to
stuff.
focus on.
Yeah. New crafting things that I didn't even know that I enjoyed doing.
That's cool. Like,
so-
what do you mean?
So after I moved into my new house, I had a whole lot of extra cardboard. So I found a YouTube channel called DM's Crafts.
Yeah, totally
Right?
great YouTube channel.
So and he shows how to make like all sorts of things out of cardboard.
Yeah, armor, swords, but also like standees and stuff.
Oh yeah, so I make little trees, terrain for the players to play on, so they can actually see it rather than just theater of the mind.
That's cool.
So it gives me something that I can kind of work on and actually use my hands to do, rather than not just telling the story. So it's all around for me. And I'm an extrovert, and I like to talk to people, like to hang out with people. And
I know.
What better way to do it than to play D&D?
Sure. Yeah, it kind of puts things in context a little bit, right? And so, and I'm sorry things are changing for you in a negative aspect, but you have an outlet
Yeah.
that is allowing you to kind of channel your frustrations, would you say?
Right.
Okay. So that is super healthy, because your answer could have been, I got some bad news and I started drinking heavily. Or I got some bad news and I've decided that I'm going to quit my job and become a professional rapper. Bad decisions all around. So let me ask you, how much time, David, I want you to answer this first. How much time a day or a week do you spend role playing?
All right. So when I was writing the answers to these, thinking about it, I think that I actually have dedicated time. I think it's 13 hours.
Okay.
A week, right? But when I was looking at it and thinking about it, actual role playing is probably like 9, maybe.
Okay.
Because the big part of D&D is hanging out with your friends and like talking, and
Sure.
you get on some tangents that make no sense in the game world, but they're fun to play.
And 9 hours sounds like a lot. It does sound like a lot sometimes. However, if you really think about it, for the folks who don't play D&D, but they, go home and watch 2 to 3 hours of Netflix a night,
Yeah, and
it adds up as well.
I think it's good to remember too that it's not 9 hours all sitting all at once or 13 hours all sitting all at once.
Maybe
could
for
not do
you,
that.
but for our group, we do 6-7 hours a session.
I'm
we
sorry,
only
that
meet-
sounds-
yeah.
no.
It sounds really bad. It does, but we get so excited
bad at
about
all.
it, and we play. We start at 4 in the afternoon, and we go till we're done.
I mean,
that's so much fun.
I get the appeal and stuff, but that's not where I'm at in my life. I'd have to leave and come back a couple hours later, like a couple times. But so how much time do you think you spend a week, Kyle? Would you say?
Well, like I said, we spend 6 to 7 hours plus. I would say every other week playing that.
Okay.
And about that, I'm going to be doing about that with my new campaign.
Right.
So probably 6-7 hours a week.
Okay. So
with
if
Dan.
you weren't doing this, what else would you be doing? D&D didn't happen. What else would you be doing? That's a really tough question. I didn't ask you that ahead of time. So
No, I think for me, I mean, I've always enjoyed movies.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing for me. It's a way to get into another world.
yeah, through an adventure.
Through an adventure, and it takes me someplace and allows me to forget what I'm dealing with at that moment.
I hear you.
I'd probably get sucked into some MMORPG on a computer.
You'd be doing the same thing, but
Yeah.
in a different format.
Exactly.
Okay.
Role playing is just so much fun.
Okay.
It just is.
All right, so let me ask you now, both of you kind of were introduced to this in your life. How is this something that's easy to get into?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes people may overthink it, and it becomes difficult.
Right.
Or if they're, it also depends on the group. If they try to join the wrong kind of group that's like power gaming kind of thing, then it's hard to get into. But
We have someone in our group that overthinks it. She always plays a very complicated character,
Right.
with a lot of spells.
Sure.
And she spends time going,
A tiefling
"What-
paladin.
What am I going to do next? What is area effect versus target? What is all this other stuff? And she overthinks it sometimes. It's just like, what do you want to do?
Right.
What do you?
Yeah.
Just let it flow.
Break it down.
Don't.
So really, actually, this is a great way to learn problem solving.
Absolutely.
Right?
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking, which is a skill that is not often taught, and you learn through mistakes. And that would be a great place to learn critical thinking, because you're in a kind of a safety bubble a little bit, because your actions are not going to put you in the poorhouse necessarily.
You could put it on your resume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are people who
Leadership
have.
skills
Yep.
and
Yeah.
Critical thinking,
Yeah,
problem solving.
it does work.
group dynamics,
Group dynamic.
being able to problem solve within a group. Yeah, it's all there.
So you would say this is something that's kind of easy to get into, right? Or at least easy to try.
Yes.
Okay. You looked like you were gonna say something though. Kyle.
Well, I was just going to say easy to get into. We had just discussed earlier,
Right.
finding that outlet, getting into that game. Once you've jumped that hurdle, somebody in there is going to be willing to hold your hand.
Yeah,
so to speak,
totally.
And walk you through it and explain it. And you don't even really have to understand it off the bat. You just, what do I roll? And someone will tell you. And you'll roll. There's 7 different dice to choose from. And
Yeah.
someone will go, nope, that one. Just roll that. What's the number? Okay,
Yep.
this happened.
There's a little bit of math.
Yeah.
A little bit of math, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of math, but you don't necessarily have to do it if you're the first time person, right?
Yeah.
So you just say, you roll the d20. it
Your
rolls a
game master
16.
should provide you with a calculator,
Yeah.
or at least be willing to help you do the calculations.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's right there too. Once you learn the character sheet, I mean, all the information that you need is only on one page. There's extra stuff that you can have, but it's all right there. So once you learn where it is, it becomes very easy.
Okay, cool. So if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, "Wow, this doesn't sound like the terrible thing that I was led to think that it was going to be," how would you suggest they, try to experience this? We've already talked about the apps are free. You can go online to Wizards of the Coast's Dungeons and Dragons website. But what else can they do to get into this?
I think the most fun and most rewarding for the person would be just to go to a local gaming store.
Okay.
Like AC.
Like
Gaming.
AC Gaming
Yeah.
Space. Okay.
Observe first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which most groups would be okay with. You can kind of sit in or kind of talk with or pretend you're playing another game at another table and just eavesdrop.
Yeah. Also, like if you do want to sit in or whatever, just talk to whoever's running the game. The dungeon master will let you sit, and sometimes I will let a new person sit behind the screen with me, and so they can see what I'm doing.
So the screen, explain that.
So
So Game Master operates behind a wall.
sometimes it doesn't. You don't have to.
Okay.
But what it allows you to do is have like extra notes out that people can't see, so you can have mystery and intrigue.
No metagaming.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna need to explain that.
Metagaming. So there's the player that you're playing,
Okay.
and then the player knowledge of that character. So you know what's going on and what you're talking about outside of the game, and the goal is to not play your character knowing things that you know.
Okay.
So-
okay.
Yeah.
Metagame. So Deadpool's fourth wall breaks.
Sure. Absolutely.
Exactly that.
And honestly, that is something I think you'd have to probably experience.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can explain that kind of gaming. You'd have to just go and sit and experience it. Because I have heard several times, told to myself and also while I'm eavesdropping on other groups, where the dungeon master or the game master will say, well, yes, that is what's going on, but your character doesn't know that yet.
Exactly.
And that's very important because
Yeah.
then you're kind of, it's not about what the end result is. It's about trying to figure out the formula on how to get through whatever situation that you're in.
Not what would you do? What would your character do?
That's super cool. That's super cool. And so, but if somebody was to get into this, you would suggest that they put aside, like 30 minutes for a game?
No.
No.
I think it just to get a feel for it, at least 2 hours.
Okay.
That's cool. In a sitting. Usually it's probably 4.
Okay.
But at least 2 hours.
There
per
are
sitting.
some playthrough podcasts too that you could listen to.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of those run an hour that you could listen to in your car or while you're doing work or something.
Right.
And they'll introduce the game and the characters, and they'll actually play through a game
That's
that
great.
you can listen to.
So, okay. So, but I have a little bit of a suggestion, so I'm just going to throw this out there.
Absolutely.
I run a game night, which is at AC Gaming Space, bringing a lot of AC Gaming Space love to this podcast.
They deserve it.
But exactly, I agree. I bring this. I bring my games, and usually my games that I bring to this are easy to learn, quick to play games. And if somebody would sit down, we'd probably play 2 or 3 rounds of a game, whether it's a card game or some sort of strange board game. But there are some tabletop games that take a little more time that I think are good intro to D&D a little bit. Like, I absolutely love the game Zombicide.
Yeah.
And there's also other dice-based games, like Marvel put out this game called Thanos Rising based on the popular Avengers movie franchise. It's a game where you are going to lose 9 out of the 10 times that you play, but the point is to enjoy yourself while you're playing the game, right?
Monster of the Week.
Monster of the Week. Yep. There's 5 Minute Dungeon, which I think
5 Minute Dungeon,
we were talking about.
Arcadia Quest.
Yeah, there's lots of cool tabletop games that have the rules
Right.
and have the whole. But when you're done playing those and you want to go off the rails with your rules, go to your local gaming store, find someone that's running a game, and just be like, "I'd love to roll up a character." Is that the term? Roll up a character?
Sure.
It's whatever you want it to be now.
I feel like I'm like the old guy talking to kids. Do kids still say cool?
I'd like to roll a character, yeah. Unless you're point buying.
Be like, just walk in and be like, "Hello, sir. May I roll up a character, please?" No, that doesn't work.
No, I would totally like it if people did that.
That would
Like,
be great.
if they were already in another character persona when they come up and say they want to play the game. Sure, why not?
You'd be like, "Oh, how many voices can you do?" All right,
Exactly.
that's great. So, any other thoughts on necessarily like why you think people should play D&D?
Just give it a try.
Just give it a try. Okay. Why should I play D&D, Kyle?
Well, you should. incredibly imaginative person that you are.
Oh, thanks.
It's just fun. It allows you to maybe experience something that you're not willing to do in your real life.
Cool.
Play it through a character.
A little bit of fantasy.
Yeah.
A little bit of safe fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay. Have either of you ever done any what they call LARPing?
Oh, LARPing.
Live action role playing.
That is totally something that I wanted to try, and I was looking it up, and I found a company called Nero, North England role playing organization or something like that.
Sure.
And the closest place was way too far away, so
Okay.
I never got a chance to
You
really.
should probably start one of your own. Craft some cardboard armor and.
So I have never LARPed, but this August I'm going to visit my sister in Minnesota. In August, that's when they have one of the largest Renaissance fairs.
Which is essentially LARPing, by the way.
And they do that there. So I'm hoping to maybe participate for the first time.
Oh, wow. I'm excited for you. That's going to be awesome. So thank you both for being here. And if you do want to learn more about Dungeons & Dragons or you have any questions for Kyle or David, feel free to give me a message. You can message me on the Facebook page that we have for the Mental Health Survival Guide and also on the North Volume website. Kyle, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you, David.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, please take care of yourselves. Get out there and role play a little bit because we all know that survival is so much more than staying alive. Thank you.